I can't recall the 4 P's of marketing.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you guys all for attending our event. My name's Evelyn. I go by Eva. I'm a 4th year student at Toro in Harlem. And the reason I wanted to put this event together was so that, because I know that when you're a DO, it's a little bit different when you're applying to emergency medicine. So I thought it was really important that we put this together and we let you guys know what the process has been for us as 4th years, as well as the residents who have already been through this process. So Janelle will be taking over as the moderator. So I'll hand it to you now, Janelle.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the New York Emergency Medicine Student Council's panel on applying to emergency medicine as a DO student.
Sorry, Janelle, I muted. I tried to mute everyone and muted you by mistake.
All right, welcome everyone to the New York Emergency Medicine Student Council's panel on applying to emergency medicine as a DO student. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really hope that we will be able to answer a lot of your questions. We had over like 300 questions, and I hope that this session tonight will be helpful for all of us. I'm a 3rd year student at Toro College of Osteopathic Medicine in Harlem, and I'm also the New York City liaison for the council. Okay, so why don't we start with some introductions? I'll have the panelists each introduce themselves by just telling us where you grew up, where you went to undergrad and medical school, and as an icebreaker, what's the favorite place you've traveled to? All right, let's start with Eva.
Okay, so hi everyone. I grew up in Westchester County. I went to the University of Delaware for undergrad. I am at Toro in Harlem, as I mentioned, and you said favorite place I've traveled?
Yeah.
So I actually was really lucky to study abroad when I was in college, and I studied abroad in London, and that was definitely my favorite place to be.
Very nice. Brendan.
Hey guys, I'm Brendan. I grew up in northern New Jersey in Franklin Lakes. I went to college there in Mahwah at Ramapo College, and then went right off to LECOM in Erie, Pennsylvania. And then favorite place to travel would probably be Sicily. I had the opportunity to go there for a couple summers. So
Very nice. Italy's beautiful. All right, Jillian, tell us more.
Hi guys, I'm Jillian. I grew up on Long Island in Jericho, New York. I went to undergrad at the University of Florida, and I'm currently a 4th year at Nova Southeastern University in Florida. And my favorite place I traveled would probably be Amsterdam. I spent a full summer there back in college.
Nice. Dr. Merritt.
Hey, I'm Brian. I'm originally from rural Western Pennsylvania. Went to undergrad at a school called Slippery Rock, and then went to med school at LECOM up in Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm currently down in Sarasota, Florida at Florida State as a 1st year. So been relatively sheltered, unfortunately, in my life. Only real place I've actually traveled is to the Dominican Republic a couple times, which was pretty awesome.
The DR is nice too.
Yeah.
All right. Dr. DiFilippo.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike. Grew up in Brooklyn, and I like to say we did the Italian migration. If any of you from the New York City area, we went from New York City to Jersey. Did my undergrad at community college, and then went to Monmouth University to finish out my undergrad degree. Went to Rowan University for medical school, and now I'm a 2nd year at New York Presbyterian, Columbia, and Cornell in Manhattan. And my favorite place to travel is actually cruise ships. Any cruise ship, no matter where it's going, as long as they have the open bar package, I'm cool with that.
And Dr. Owen.
Hi guys, I'm Lena. I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. I went to Maryland for undergrad. Then I went to Nova Southeastern, where Jillian's at for medical school. And now I'm a PGY2 at Hopkins back in Maryland and Baltimore. My favorite place I traveled is probably Greece. I was very lucky and spent like an entire summer just on the islands of Greece one year. And it was really nice to be completely off the grid, literally like no internet, no cell phone service for like a month straight. highly recommend if you ever have the opportunity to do a vacation like that where you're off the grid.
Very nice. Thank you guys so much. All right, let's jump right into the questions. I know Dr. Lewis will join us a little bit later, but let's jump right in. And the first question will actually be for Dr. DeFilippo. There was a student who had a specific question for you, actually, and she wanted to know what led you to ultimately choosing residency at New York Presbyterian Cornell, and what advice would you have for a fellow OMS1 who wants to do the same?
Sure. So I knew I wanted to do emergency medicine right from the get-go of medical school. I was a paramedic for 10 years before going back to medical school. I wanted to do academics. I very much enjoyed teaching when I was a paramedic and wanted to go to an academic institution to really focus on teaching and prep in that way. So I kind of left my options open in that regard. When applications open for away rotations, I saw New York Presbyterian was open. It just looked like a really cool place. I had a friend that worked there as an ER doc, so I reached out to him, who I knew from EMS, and asked him about whether or not he liked it. Went there, did my sub-I there, fell in love with the place in the sense that like very good teaching, and like they really focused on like making emergency medicine physicians great teachers to residents, medical students, staff nurses, other staff in the hospital, community outreach programs. So that in conjunction with like all the opportunities that were present at that institution made it my number one choice pretty quickly. What was the second part of the question? Sorry.
If it's a student in like first year, like how can they make themselves more competitive and sort of follow that path?
Honestly, I think just reaching out relatively early, especially if there's a location that you're interested in for residency. Like if you know, for instance, you want to go to this one residency program right from the get-go for whatever reason, whether it's location, family preference, or like specific institutional preference for whatever reason, maybe you work there or have friends that are there. The earlier you reach out to program directors or clerkship directors, just to let them know you're interested, maybe do like a summer shadowing. So a lot of these institutions, especially big academic institutions, have summer research programs for visiting medical students that are open to DO students. So that would be another thing to take advantage of. I didn't do any of that, but now being on the flip side and seeing like all the opportunities for visiting medical students, that's like some of the things I would say to take advantage. And then other like the routine stuff, like make sure you do well on, board scores and in school, and just really ends up being like crushing your slows on your away rotations, really what matters the most.
Very well. And another question in general, anyone from the panel can take this, is what are some of your qualities or experiences that you've had that you think really stood out on your applications? Like what's something that kept coming up in your interviews over and over again? Whoever want to take this one.
I guess I can start us off. My big thing was hobbies. Honestly, like you want to talk about things that get brought up over and over and over again. It's like any hobby that you like really are passionate about, people love to talk about it. So for me, I'm working on getting my private pilot's license, and it got brought up in every single interview, no matter what, at least once, probably 3 or 4 times. So I'd say hobbies is definitely a big thing.
All right, Eva or Jillian as well.
Yeah, I would second that. I think, find some hobbies early on that you like and kind of stick with it. I am a huge athlete, so I put basically every sport under the sun that I've played growing up. And then I would always talk to people about that, because especially for emergency medicine, they kind of want to see who you are outside of medicine as well as like who you are in medicine. So kind of just, flourishing your hobbies and what you kind of enjoy doing. Like I even put like a sentence like what me and my family enjoy doing when I spend time with them. And, I even put like my favorite sports team. So like anyone who's like anti-New York Yankees had some things to say to me. So kind of just anything that you are passionate about, just kind of run with it and make sure that you put that on your application, because they love to talk about that in your interviews.
Did you get any rival teams?
Always.
Always.
I would say like ditto for sure about all of that. And I think that goes for everything on your application. Like if you're at the interview process at that point, like they already like your scores, they already like your slows, all that stuff is like behind you. The only reason they want to interview you now is to get to know you as a person and see who you would be as like one of their residents or one of their co-residents if like residents are interviewing too. And I think it like, especially if you're early on in medical school, I think it's really easy to fall into the trap of like, oh, I need X on my application, or I need this type of experience or this thing. But like, you really want to reflect and only do things that you're passionate about, because at the end of the day, everything on your CV that like is there on your application, they get to ask you about in the interview. And if it's something you're passionate about and you can talk about and care about, that shows. And like, that's what they want to see. They like want to get to know you and why you did those things and like who you are as a person. But if it's some random thing that you did just to check a box, it's going to be pretty obvious when they ask you about it, when you don't really care about talking about it. So I think it's just kind of twofold. Like, don't waste your time with things you don't care about. Like, build your medical school career and like really your career in general for things that you care about and things that are going to drive you. I don't know, I guess that's a bit vague, but I would say like, if you're looking for like super concrete things people always ask me about, I was like pretty involved early on, like the national level. I just like put myself out there and kept applying to like things with like SAEM or like AAM or EMRA or ASAP. Like there's all these big national organizations and they are always looking for medical students to get involved, whether that be like volunteering at conferences, volunteering on committees. There's like always projects. And like, I didn't realize this until I started getting involved, that like they're looking for medical students or someone to help them with all these projects they have. And if you happen to be that person to email and ask about it, like, bam, then not only are you on a project, but then you're like networking with people around the country and residents who like want to help you out. So I'd say like that's a really good way to get your foot in the door for sure.
Very nice. Let's backtrack a little bit and go to step one and come like that sort of like jumped all the way to being at the interview. But you know, someone asked, would someone be at a huge disadvantage if they only took COMLEX level 1 and they didn't take step 1, but they were planning on taking step 2?
I think that the paradigm has changed significantly now that step 1 has gone pass fail. You know, now there's no like score comparison that needs to be done between COMLEX level 1 versus step 1. If anything, I think most programs will tell you they look more seriously at step 2, as that's better like for clinical decision making and really attest so much of that, as opposed to step 1 and level 1, which are very like minute medical knowledge and scientific knowledge. At least the experience at our place at NYP, I know we put a heavier weight on step 2 than step 1. I would absolutely advise any DO student, if you're looking to open all the doors that you can, to take USMLE. Unfortunately, it sucks because you're wasting extra money, and it's a pretty decent chunk of money, plus the time and stress of taking 2 long exams. However, you know, some programs unfortunately don't look at COMLEX, but they do take DOs and historically have taken DOs. They just want to see that you can perform well on step because that's just their metric. But yeah, I think if anything, to take step 2, the only time I would advise someone not to take USMLE would be if you know you're going to do very poorly on it or fail it, because that would look worse than not taking it.
And do you think for Cornell, is it now that things have gone past fail that they're focusing more heavily on step 2, or was this always the case?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was always the case that step 2 is weighted heavier. But now that step 1's going past fail, it's kind of now a checkbox as opposed to, so just a little background into, I'm sure every place does it a little differently, but most places have a weighted percentage system for scoring before you even make it to your interview process. So based off of USMLE scores, strength of slows, all that sort of stuff, they'll essentially give you a percentage weight and have a preliminary rank list before you're even interviewed. And then based off the interview, that's when they start making adjustments to this prelim rank list. At least that's how we do it at our place. And the interview, at least at our place, is super, 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 super crucial because people make huge jumps up the rank list, like rank to match from interview because of how well they do. But really the key with STEP is honestly just getting that foot in the door. And it's emergency medicine in the grand scheme of things. The number one most important factor is going to be your slow. If your slows are awesome, you don't need a high STEP score. You just need to show that you're competent on STEP. But obviously the higher the STEP score, the better. Some places are a lot more comfortable looking at COMLEX. I know also looking behind the scenes at our place, we do interpret COMLEX and we do like a weighted conversion to what it would be equivalent to for step 1 or step 2 and use that in conjunction with an actual step 2 score. So if anything, a good COMLEX score would just be additive to your step 2 score at our shop. But yeah, I would just say like slows are honestly the most important thing, but step 2 to at least just get your foot in the door for that.
Very nice. Okay, I see that Dr. Lewis has joined us. Thank you so much. Just introduce yourself real quickly. Tell us where you grew up, where you went to undergrad, med school, and your favorite place you've traveled to.
Hey guys, my name is Dr. Sarah Lewis. I like going by Lou, so call me Lou. I grew up in Brooklyn, went to undergrad at Stony Brook, then ended up at Toro for master's and med school. Favorite place that I've traveled? I did like a Euro trip after step one, solo, which was very fun. Recommend it for anyone who's going. I think my best place there had to be Venice.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so we have some questions about like extracurricular activities. And someone wanted to know what some of the things that you could do between your first and second year, like what should they be doing at that time?
Janelle, if you don't mind, I'll talk about scores also. So I wanted to mention that I had a low step one score. I was very upset about it. I wasn't sure if I'd have to dual apply. And then I scored much higher on step two. And I basically worked my butt off on my EM rotations. I got there early. I stayed late. I did everything I could. I was enthusiastic. And I ended up honoring all three institutions I ended up rotating at. And that ended up getting me a lot of interviews. So there were places where my step one score didn't make cutoffs. And yet I still got an interview from them very early on in the season. So don't let a score be a barrier, because I did. And I want you guys to learn from my mistake. EM is one of those specialties that truly cares more about your personality, your work ethic, and I'm evidence of it. So if that's anything I can give you guys from this panel, it's that. And I'll also give my info if anyone wants, to ask me questions personally for that.
Very good. Thank you, Eva. So you were saying that like, were you cut out because of the low step one score or not?
I'm sure I was cut out of a few, but I didn't feel it because I got a lot of interviews, to be honest. Right. I'm gonna say, let's say I closed 10 doors from my step one score. I probably opened up 8 of them after my step two score and my slows. I'm just guessing, but it wasn't as much of a barrier as I thought it would be.
Yeah. And I think that that's really important for people to know. And again, because step is going past fail, the weight is changing to that step two. So people should really try to bump up and do well on COMLEX level 2 and step 2. That seems like the overall consensus. And then the question about extracurriculars was, what can students be doing in between their first and second years?
Okay, go for it, Brian.
So this is kind of a tough question because in my opinion, like this is kind of your last summer or your last break before you get into rotations and you really start working all the time. So part of me wants to say like, don't do a whole lot, enjoy yourself, take the time, travel, like get some experiences in that you won't have time to do for the next few years. If you are really inclined to do stuff, whether it's some of the hospitals affiliated with your school or with some of your like preclinical faculty, they're usually doing some kind of research project that they would love some help getting data collection or, helping with the abstract or the paper. So those are kind of quick, easy things that you can do over the course of a summer and just add to your CV and get some of that background that you can put on your AIRS application. And there's usually going to be some kind of quick, easy things you can get in. But I'll kind of jump back to the first part. Don't get too overwhelmed and like run yourself down to build up your resume. It'll happen over the course of your 3 years before you start to apply. You'll build some stuff up in your application. So don't put all that much pressure on yourself over the course of the 2 months you have off or whatever it is. Take some time and enjoy yourself and take the vacation that you have.
And then let's follow up on that, Dr. Liu. It's going to take me a while because I'm reading the name off the screen. But let's say, okay, first, second year, all right, year 2, year 3, like what should students be really doing if they want to, okay, I know I'm going into EM now. What should they be doing? You're muted.
Okay, here we go. So I would say that definitely you still need to enjoy yourself because that summertime between second and third year is probably going to be the last time that you actually have legitimate time off. But if you find even like a short summer program or a short way to like kind of just be around ED in some way, it will definitely boost your application. For example, like Barnabas has this summer program for, I believe, PGY 1s and 2s. It's not the entire summer, so you still have at least like 2 or 3 weeks off at the end. But you'll gain a plethora of experience just being in the emergency department that you wouldn't get otherwise. In terms of third year, between third and fourth year, that summertime is going to be you getting your application like down packed, because you want to submit on that day. Like, don't submit a day late. You need to submit on that day before the deadline, because otherwise you end up throwing yourself way behind the pack, and you don't want to be already putting yourself at another disadvantage. Taking that summer to kind of make sure that your personal statement is, up to par. And by that, I would mean definitely having multiple people look at it, not just your friends, but people who are both in and outside of medicine, and also having like a faculty person kind of look at your statement. That way you get multiple viewpoints as to what should stay, what doesn't stay, and then kind of like perfecting it. Because you would actually be surprised at how much your family and friends and faculty members know about you that you didn't put forward in your personal statement, and they might actually help you to add on. That's, I think.
Okay.
If I can just add something really quick,
Sure.
Janelle, I just think that, all through all of your years of medical school, all those experiences will add up to why you end up wanting to go into EM if you didn't know before medical school. So yeah, you should definitely take the time between your first and second year to take time for yourself and enjoy the time off. But you can also find some short things. Like, I went on a mission trip for 1 week to Cuba, and I got to spend time in the emergency department there. And that was as a between first and second year medical students. So there's definitely things that you can go and find. If your school is not hosting a mission trip for you, you can definitely find things online and like other trips that are just out there, like on the internet, to try to like make some experiences for yourself. Because if you're someone who likes to travel like me, I had a unique opportunity to go to Cuba and actually like be able to build my experiences for emergency medicine early on.
Very nice. And just
Agree.
one more question regarding just extracurricular activities. Were any of you EMTs, paramedics, or scribes? And did any of that come up in interviews?
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was a scribe like most of college, so it definitely came up on a fair amount of interviews, but I think it was more like me bringing it up just from stories from like when I was a scribe in the ED than like them caring that much. Like, if you weren't a scribe, if you weren't an EMT, that's totally fine. I'm sure the majority of EM physicians were not those things, and that's totally cool.
Right.
I
Anybody
was
else?
in EMT before school for 7 years. So, and honestly, I don't think it got brought up all that much. I think, like Lena said, or Dr. Owen said, I really think that if it was brought up, it was kind of more or less brought up by me than
Right.
anything else.
Right.
Yeah, and kind of on the contrary, I had zero clinical experience before I started med school, and even through medical, like really until residency, was not a scribe, I wasn't a tech, I wasn't an EMT, nothing. So it certainly can benefit you just in your background, but it's not something that's super critical and necessary.
Right. Okay, let's talk about research a little bit. Someone wanted to know, if my goal is to work at a level 1 trauma center, how important are getting research publications, research abstract posters? How important is that in EM anyway?
So not. I
Yeah.
think all of us are shaking our head no. I would say if you're passionate about research and that's your jam, go for it, do it. But to match at a level 1 center, you definitely don't need heavy research. I happened to like do some public health stuff just because I was getting my MPH during med school, but like in no way was it a big research project. In no way did it have anything to do with emergency medicine. And I still interviewed at a bunch of level 1 trauma centers and matched at a level 2 trauma center, which has a ridiculous amount of trauma anyway. But yeah, not important at all. Don't sweat it. Research is something that, like, good research takes years and a lot of time and energy. And they know that as a medical student, like, the likelihood of you having a significant project is like pretty low, and that's fine.
Well, that really answers it. Everybody was just like, no, not important.
I was involved in some research. So I had such imposter syndrome first year. So I decided to actually survey my entire school and do and basically see if they also felt similarly. And I presented that research at like some conferences, but that was not at all bench research. That was literally just me being like, this is really interesting. I'm really interested in wellness. So if you're passionate about something, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to, you can do case reports even, which aren't like a long, research topic. So I think there's ways to go about doing research and showing an interest in EM without having to do something you're not interested in.
I think
All
a
right.
big thing that I was nervous about was that I was interested in a couple of different things before I like fully decided on EM. So a lot of my research kind of is in different specialties. And I was very nervous about putting that on my application because I was like, oh, what if they think I'm like dual applying, or what if they think I didn't really want to go into EM off the bat? But it ended up being really great because it was more of like a highlight of what I'm passionate about. Like I'm passionate about doing this kind of research and this kind of specialty. And that's always like filtered through emergency medicine. So it doesn't matter if like you have like a ton of like ortho research or ophtho research or like derm research, because that could just be like your little like niche in emergency medicine and you can flourish that. So don't be afraid to add stuff like that if you have, research that's specialized in one thing.
Very nice. So let's talk about rotations a little bit. How can medical students best succeed on their emergency medicine rotations?
So I can mention, I'll send a link to this podcast I listened to, but you should be enthusiastic. You should want to be there. So like, there's going to be times where they're going to be like, oh, you can go home if you want. Don't take them up on that. Don't go home, stay the whole shift, right? Especially if you're interested in EM. So I rotated in New York. In New York, it's tough. We have a shortage of nurses. It seems to be everywhere right now, but people were waiting on getting IVs. And so I would offer to do IVs. I would offer, you shouldn't have to transport a patient, but if someone was waiting for a long time and all we were waiting for was transport and they could walk, they just had a little bit of upper abdominal, right upper quadrant pain, I would walk with them to get the ultrasound and things like that. So just go out of your way to try and help out, read the room, and just be yourself, but just really be enthusiastic. I also didn't necessarily wait for them to ask to give me patients. Like I would be like, hey, I saw this interesting patient, like, could I take them, depending on how they are about giving patients. I think the biggest thing is to be enthusiastic, because obviously it really makes such a difference if you want to be there and they can pick up on that.
Are there any high yield resources you guys use? Any podcasts? Evelyn, you said you're going to add some stuff that you used as well. Okay, very well. Anybody else wanted to answer that?
Yeah, I would just say, I think the biggest thing about EM rotations, like you were saying, like being motivated, being enthusiastic, like being a go-getter. People like EM is all about teamwork. They just want a team player. That's all they want. They want someone that's chill, someone they can hang out with, and someone who's a team player. And the biggest thing I think over the course of an EM rotation is just to show growth. They just want to see that you're like teachable and that you're learning and that you respond to feedback. Like if they tell you at the end of a shift, like XYZ feedback, and then you build on that in the rotation, that's going to go miles further than just like arriving and being amazing. Like then they didn't teach you anything, like residency is about learning, it's about teaching, it's about growing, and they want you to be teachable. I'd say those are the main things, but yeah. And then I think just asking for feedback too, honestly, I think that helped me a ton. Like when I was a student, like after every single shift, I would ask like the resident I worked with and the attendant I worked with and the nurses I worked with for feedback. And I think they like noticed that. And I really like built off of that throughout all of my rotations.
What do you say? You'd be like, how did I do? Like, how do you?
No, I mean, yeah, like I would just say at the end of the shift, like I would usually start with the nurse and I would just be like, hey, like, I'm a student, like I'm new to like working in this position. And like, if you have any feedback for me or like anything that I could help you with or anything that like might have been frustrating to you that I didn't realize, like any feedback. And I think that people were really receptive to it. And it was nice because I think a lot of the nurses were like, no one's ever asked me that.
Right.
So
right.
I think they appreciated it. And then as far as like attendings and reds, oh, for sure. I'd be like, I'm here to learn. I'm really excited about being in emergency medicine. And like, I just want to get better. I just want to grow. Like, what can I do? Like, I want constructive things. Like, what did I do well? What did I not do well? And like, I personally would focus more on the, like, what did I not do well? Cause like, I don't want to go the whole month and then just still be making the same mistakes and have no idea.
I feel like that's so good because even for me, like sometimes I want to ask the question and then I get like a little nervous. I'll ask here and there, but it's good to know that it's just the way you word it, right? And if you're coming as someone who's I'm here to do my best and I'm not a know-it-all and people will be receptive of that. So I think it's just the way you word it and showing that you're here to like listen and learn. That's definitely good advice.
One more.
Another,
And then, sorry, I think they're gonna put these in resources in, but I think just so you know, like EM physicians really like scores when you present. So like knowing like the heart score and the well score, and there's all these like random scores on mdcalc.com that EM physicians use to risk stratify people and like guide diagnostics. And if you like come up to them and you're like, this person has chest pain on a heart score of XYZ, that attending is gonna be like very impressed with you, or they should be, in my opinion.
yeah, no, I agree. And something else that is kind of minute, but just following up on patients and interventions that you do, and like keeping up on labs as they come back. Like, hey, you know, the repeat trope was elevated. Do you want me to get another EKG? Or you know, their pain improved after giving their morphine or whatever the case is. But just being involved in patient care outside of when you're talking to your attending or the resident even, I think is important. And that was something I got like a good amount of feedback on, is just like being involved in patient care, even though you aren't the physician.
I think that that's such a good advice. Eva, the link you added, the EM clerkship, that's one of the things he spoke about on there. It's like follow up with the labs, and then go back to the attending and be like, okay, this is in. And I remember my first 2 shifts with Dr. Varma at St. Mary's, he kept saying that to me, but that was before I had watched the lecture, but I didn't realize what was important. And that's like one of the most important things you can do, is just to stay on top of your patient and following up with that as they trend. So I think that's also like very good advice to stay on top of the labs.
Also, offer to do consults. Like if you need an OB-GYN consult, it's going to be terrifying. I was so scared I was stuttering on the phone with this OB-GYN resident, but I did it. And I think it's all the more impressive. Or the, they call it like the MAR, like the medicine admitting resident, like be the one, you can practice with the resident and be like, can I practice like what I would say to the admitting resident? And they'll usually be really receptive to that.
I think also as an osteopathic student, you really like doing your rotations and getting these flows is like your time to shine and really show that you are that great of a student to get that future interview, to get that great slow. So you really have to, you know, take advantage of that opportunity, like show up early. Like me and Evelyn had that great opportunity. We rotated together. That's how I met her. We both did our audition at the same place. And then 2 of us were always there early. We always introduced ourselves to everybody, the nurses, the techs, the doctors, the residents, like literally everyone that we can introduce ourselves to. Like we did it off the bat. You know, you want to go that extra mile because, you know, obviously like we rotated with a lot of allopathic students, and you kind of want to try to like set yourself apart as an individual and like why, and show them why you think that you deserve to be there and why you can get a great slow. So just, you always want to go the extra mile, and, you know, this isn't your time to just like kick back and relax. Like you really need to like push it, you know, as hard as you can for those like summer months when you're getting your slows.
They notice stuff. They do. Believe it or not, like they really notice the people who show up early, you know, the people who even like, okay, another thing, obviously if COVID's better, but like where Jillian and I rotated, they had every Tuesday evening, all the residents were off. And so they would go to a bar. We went, like go to the bar, enjoy time with the residents, you know, get to know them outside of the hospital and take advantage of that, because like networking is a huge part of like, you know, being able to get some of these interviews, I feel like, because if you can get your name out there, then, you know, people might see that and be able to invite you for an interview.
Okay, let's jump into what are some good 4th year electives that we should be doing?
So in COVID, it might be a little more difficult right now. Some hospitals are a little more restrictive, but I did an anesthesia rotation kind of toward the end of my 4th year. And that was probably one of the most beneficial rotations that I had done in medical school. Just it gave me a lot of confidence going in, being better prepared for airways, and just seeing airways and getting to practice different intubations and watching, like taking in all the information the CRNAs and the anesthesiologist had to offer. Because you're going to be doing a lot of, like, you're the airway guy, or the airway person. That's your job. So the more airways you can see and the more resources and opportunities you have, I think that would be huge for you.
I would second that, and I'd also say I did a cardiology rotation during my 4th year, early on in my 4th year, and it actually proved to be super helpful later on, you know, in reading EKGs and things like that. That's one thing that like constantly gets plunked down in front of your attending, and if you can look at it and be like, oh, cool, like, you know, and see flip T waves or, you know, things like that, like little smaller things. I think it's definitely a helpful thing.
Anything else?
I would just say, like, once you're done with your ways and stuff 4th year, like, don't stress yourself out too much. You're going to have all of residency to learn these things. And like, realistically, like the few intubations I did on that anesthesia rotation, while it was fun and like cool, like now I have over 100 intubations. Like, I don't know if it mattered as much then. And so like, if you're already exhausted after interview season, like it's okay to like let go and have a chill few rotations. Like that's very acceptable and fine. But I think like if you're really looking for things to learn, I think, yeah, cardiology, anesthesia. The other thing is like, I don't know if this is possible. I somehow managed to do a chill ICU rotation where I just had to go on rounds. Like I didn't stay the whole day and like the hours are great. And I found that really helpful just because it was like, you know, a lot of the ED patients end up in the ICU and it's nice to see how they think through things and like what things that they're like, oh, the ED did this, blah, 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 whatever. And like, it's just nice to like see what happens next. Like what's that next step after the ED, but also ICU rotations are notoriously awful hours. So if you can't work something chill like that, like please don't kill yourself and work a ton. It's so not worth it.
So I gotta know,
most-
where's a chill ICU rotation? I have to know.
I just made friends with one of the pulmonologists at one of our home institutions, and he was like, "You can come for rounds and then go."
All
home."
right, all right.
Also, I know
Um,
most osteopathic medical schools don't allow electives in your 3rd year. At least I know like mine didn't have that. So we didn't really have a chance to, you know, really figure out what we wanted to do or get into the ED early on, because at our school, our EM rotations in our 4th year, and mine technically is scheduled in a month. I haven't even had it yet. Luckily, I know that I wanted EM. But, you know, if there's anything that you can do in your 3rd year to try to, you know, get yourself into the ED that can help. Like I was able to try to get my pediatrics rotation to be peds EM. So that kind of got me some time in the ED. And then I also was able to have one of my surgery rotations was split into half anesthesia. So by then I was able to learn how to intubate, which is why when I went on my away auditions, they allowed me to intubate patients because I've already had that previous experience. But, you know, my allopathic counterparts all had their EM rotations in their 3rd year. They all had a lot of elective time and they had a lot of practice with it. So you are kind of at that slight disadvantage in that sense. But if you know early on that you want to go into emergency medicine, you know, start practicing your presentations. You know, there's videos online on how to give good presentations in the ED. You know, after you go see a patient, you know, go stand in the corner and practice yourself out loud, like whispering to yourself before you go present it to your attending, to try to get yourself good practice to be better, because some of us just don't have the same opportunities that other people do early on. Until my first adult EM rotation was my first audition. So, you know, you kind of had to learn quickly on how to do that stuff.
Very well. So it's 8:38. So what I'm going to do is each question is just going to be for one person so that we can get through as many questions as possible. So someone wanted to know about some strategies for applying away rotation. Some people want to apply in different states. And so if you've ever done that, just tell us a little bit more about the strategies that you did for applying in a different state or different geographic location.
I guess I could do that. So I'm a medical student in Florida. I also went to undergrad in Florida, but I'm from New York. And I really wanted to, you know, be able to make myself look like a competitive applicant back in New York. So I had done one away in New York and I had done one away in Florida. And I think that if there's one location or one state that you really do, like, you know, that you want to go to, do an away there. It doesn't matter like what hospital. Like, I mean, you know, if it's a hospital that you really want to go to, like obviously do it there. But just to show that you've gotten a slow from like that city or that state really does speak a lot, because at least in the year of COVID, like we were only allowed to do one away or two if your home site didn't have one. So wherever you choose kind of does say a lot about who you are as an applicant and what you're really seeking for. So this isn't really the time to like be like, oh, I want to travel to this state because it's cool. Like you want to do it in a place that you could see yourself living for the next 3 or 4 years. So I'm from a different state, you know, I'm in school in Florida, but I did one in New York, and it definitely helped me on both times, you know, getting interviews in Florida and getting interviews in New York.
Very well. What are some of the places that you guys did your audition rotations and got a slow? So I'll take this from everyone. Brendan, give me one place there you did an audition rotation and did you get a slow from there?
So I did my audition, I did a home rotation. So I was lucky enough that my home site, St. Vincent's in Erie, had an EM residency to give me a slow letter. But my one audition or away rotation was at Cape Fear Hospital in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which I got a slow from as well.
Very nice. Evelyn, tell us about one place you did audition and got a slow.
So I'll mention for Toro, our third year, we are required to do an EM rotation. So I did mine at Staten Island and I was able to get a slow. They don't normally give ones to third years, but since with COVID and everything, they gave us one. Then I did one at Maimonides with Jillian and Jacoby Montefiore. So they were all in New York City.
Very nice. Very nice. Anybody else?
I did Maimonides, like Evelyn said. I did the University of Florida in Gainesville. And then I also did a subspecialty at Einstein in Philadelphia to get a subspecialty slow.
Would you recommend even considering applying to a program that historically has never accepted a DO student?
Yes.
Okay.
Hands down, yes. I think that, okay. I feel very strongly about this. I think that DO applicants in general, we sell ourselves so short. Maybe this is me just speaking from like my own imposter syndrome, but like, I feel like we sell ourselves so freaking short, and it is so frustrating because I feel like we're never going to break that glass. There's never going to be a DO at the residency program if you all who are applying right now don't apply to these programs. Case in point, for example, like I matched at Hopkins and I'm super happy here now, but frankly, like when I was like a third year medical student, a fourth year, like people used to ask me if I'm going to go home to Maryland. I was like, oh, there's no way. Like, there's no way I would get into any of the programs in the DC area because I just like totally was selling myself short and didn't even realize. And then I like went to this conference, ran into some clerkship directors, told them I was from Maryland, and then like bam, I ended up getting an audition rotation. And look what happened. And I got an interview at every single program in the DMV. So I will just say that like I wasn't even planning on applying to these places because I was selling myself so short. So please don't do that. Like, please don't let that be a boundary. I think that like, don't go in and be like, oh, I'm going to get this interview for sure. And that's going to be my number one. And like, make sure you apply broadly. But like, when you're applying broadly, like if you're thinking about it as a way to like have safety programs, you want to have those reach programs too. So like go for those reach programs, please. I'm begging you.
Yeah, I think that's like such a good way of putting it. It's like there will never be DO students in or DO doctors in certain places if we never apply in the first place. So just go for it. I mean, you're already applying for the place you want and for your safety school. So why not? So that's great.
Just going to say I 100% agree. In my experience, like some of these places, and I'm sure Alina has the same experience, I'm the first DO some of these people have met in like forever. So, you know, most people literally forget that you're a DO after like they see your name like on a thing somewhere, to the point that like even my co-residents who I hang out with on a daily basis, sometimes things will come up and they're like, oh yeah, I forgot you're a DO. Like
Right.
No one literally cares, I'm telling you.
Right.
But you just got to go in there with the confidence for it. You're all doctors, like I said. Like just because you have different letters at the end of your last name doesn't make you any less of a physician.
How do PDs look at students who apply to other specialties as backup?
So I think that's tricky. I think historically, a lot of us come from DO schools that have terrible advising. And a lot of us, despite having competitive scores, I know from my school experience, even I had competitive scores and my advisor was like, oh, you should still consider backup applying to family medicine. So which I thought was crazy. So, you know, the only time you should really backup apply is if you're really looking for a key geographic area and you really don't care what specialty you're working into, you really just want to get to a geographic area. Or two, you really have like borderline scores or like some big red flag that, you know, would be a little concerning, makes you a little less competitive for the match. That's the only time I would really consider dual applying. Most program directors, like there's literally no way, I've reviewed applications, there's no way for us to know if you're dual applying. So I would not bring it up. And just hope they don't see you interviewing at the same institution, which happened to a friend of mine. So that would be the only thing. You just hope that doesn't happen.
What would you have done differently as a rising fourth year student in EM? Lou, if you want to go, Dr. Lou, what would you have done differently as a rising fourth year student going into EM?
I think what I would have done differently is definitely do more EM away rotations. For when in my application cycle, they like took away a lot of our aways, and initially the statement that came out from CORD was that we were only allowed one away. or one home and like one home rotation, but you were only allowed one EM rotation, period, because they wanted to make sure that everyone got a fair chance. In the end, that actually hindered me from getting interviews, because residencies are going to do what they want to do. And if they're looking for people who have 2 or more away rotations, they're going to filter everyone out who only had one. So I had one slow, and then I had to get the O slow like throughout my interview cycle to add on to my application, and that opened up some more doors. If you're in this same situation where you only have one EM rotation, definitely, I don't know if the OSLO is still a thing for you guys, but if it is, do it in something that is still very closely EM related. In terms of if you do it through IM, understand that all of the patients that you see in the ED that are being admitted are going to go into IM. And it is good to know the disease process. And know what you're going to look for in the ED, but also know what are the expectations of your counterparts in IM. And I think because I did that in my IM sub-I and received an OSLO from there, the preceptor there was able to put that in into the OSLO, saying that, like I frequently would tie in EM into this and just know what were the red flags that I needed to know for the specific disease.
Okay, how can one excel if their scores are not up to par? And I think, Eva, you had sort of alluded to this earlier, but if you just sort of wanted to attack it again, maybe from a different angle, if someone didn't have good scores, what can they do to really excel?
So my recommendation would be to find other people who have been able to do what you want to do. So match into a great residency and see what they did. So, there's no such thing as a perfect application. I'm telling you that now. I remember a PD saying that. I personally got really involved in leadership roles. I got involved at a state level. This is the council I was involved in. I really tried to network as much as I could. And so I think really just work hard at your EM rotations, because slows matter more. As I said, like, even though I didn't make cutoffs for a bunch of programs, I still got those interviews because clearly they didn't care I didn't make the cutoff for my step 1 score. So honestly, and what Lena mentioned, like, don't be self-selective. Just apply, just go for it. Why can't you be that exceptional person who is able to make it into that program? So if it's a program that you think is out of your league, then try and rotate there. I think that's your best chance at getting at a big name program that you don't think you have a chance at. Rotate there. They will fall in love with you and they will think you're awesome. And then you have such a good chance at matching there.
Is class rank necessary to become a competitive applicant for EM? Okay, so class rank, everybody's saying no, class rank doesn't matter. And what can I do now as an OMS1 to be, well, we should have talked about this already. What can they do in their first year to become like a good applicant? And then someone else asked about preclinical grades. How does that compare in terms of importance with clinical grades? Also not important, it looks like.
I would only say if you have any red flags on your application, like, don't hide them. Just like, if you have to, like, if it's something that you need to, that's going to come up, or you think that it might hinder you from any interviewer in a way, you can make it like a 2-liner in your personal statement. Do not make it like the brunt of your personal statement. Like, I think almost everybody has some sort of red flag when they apply, whether it's preclinical class or, board scores or something. You can just write like 1 line of something that happened and then what you learned from it and how you grew from it. All of like emergency medicine is like what you learn, how you grew from something, and like what you can do moving forward. So like, if you have something, like, don't try to like, oh, they're not going to notice it and they'll never ask me about it. Like, own it and own up to it. So if you do maybe fail class in your preclinical years, that might be a challenge that you can talk about and how you overcame it and what you did to move forward from that. So, don't try to hide things, just, own it. And if you have to write 1 sentence in your personal statement, like, it's not going to stop you from anything, from getting any interviews anywhere.
Okay.
I agree with that 100%. And I also think something that isn't touched upon in the preclinical years of things is 100% trying to find a mentor. As DO students, and especially at my school, there wasn't a whole lot of mentorship for me to kind of look to. So I kind of had to look for other places, look to the hospitals, like our local rotation sites, and try and find an ER doctor during like my first couple years to kind of guide me and say, like, maybe you should try this, or maybe you should go that route. That's definitely something I would have done if I could redo pre-clin years, I would try to find a mentor a little bit earlier.
Very nice. Any advice on writing a personal statement that isn't generic or corny?
Hold on, I'm just gonna throw one big tidbit. Just so you know, Emmer has a mentorship program for students. It's free, it's super easy. You can put all your preferences on like what you're looking for in a mentor. It's great. It helped me connect with someone who was a DO, who's a female in a different part of the country from where I was in med school. Super helpful.
Okay, and tell us,
So-
go ahead.
As far as the personal statement goes, my biggest advice would be just to take the time. Like, if you feel okay, like jotting ideas down now, fine. Like, just take the time to sit down and think, why am I in the position that I'm in? What makes me who I am? Why am I applying EM or whatever you decide to apply ultimately? But take the time to give it the thought that it deserves, because that's every person that is interviewing you is going to read it. It's going to come up. They're going to ask questions about your personal statement. So it's worth really taking the time and doing properly.
Very well. What went into your rank list? Location, clout, work-life balance. Let's tell us, Brendan.
That's a tough topic now that it's like coming down to crunch time.
Yeah.
I guess for me, a big deal was I kind of went off of gut reaction. My big thing is like, you spend a lot of time with these people. And so when it comes down, when push comes to shove, you want to be around people you love to be around. And so that was probably my biggest point into how I've started to formulate my rank list. It's not 100% done yet, but that's kind of my big point. And then obviously, if you're in a scenario where you have a significant other, bringing them into the decision is a big deal, because if they're going to be coming down and moving with you, my fiance is moving with me down to wherever I go. So bringing her into the decision was a huge, huge deal for me.
As a third year, I don't really know much about the rank list. Does that mean the places where you've interviewed at, that you have to rank them and they rank you? Is that how this works? Okay,
Yeah.
As a third year, I don't really know much about that process. So someone just quickly tell me about that.
So essentially, the only way you're only allowed to rank programs you've interviewed at.
Okay.
And the way that works is essentially you rank them in order of whatever preference you choose. It literally could be anything. You could just do alphabetical order, clout, vibe, whatever you desire. And then programs also have their internal rank list. And then this Nobel Prize winning award algorithm works with the NRMP to spit out the rank, and you match wherever you match. But ideally, there's a lot of videos. It's a little complicated how it works, but it works in the applicant's favor, meaning it works in your favor to rank where you want to go.
Right.
And don't rank based off how you think a program is ranking you.
Okay, so the penultimate question is, someone said, I've heard that EM will be flooded with too many EM doctors in the next few years. Is this true? Should this be a reason to not go into emergency medicine?
So I feel like I could speak on this a little bit. I'm on the board for SAEM RAMS. I'm also on the task force for the labor task force with ASAP. It's definitely a thing to be concerned about. There's been a huge explosion of residency programs, primarily for-profit HCA, USACS programs, which are these corporate private venture programs. There is projected to be a surplus of EM physicians by 2030. Whether or not that's actually going to come to fruition is the hotly debated thing right now at most EM places. If anything, I feel like the biggest thing is going to be historically, like, older programs are probably going to become more competitive, because realistically, as far as job markets get concerned, which is really at the end of all of this, the big thing everyone wants to do is just find a place to work and make some money finally, and do like real EM doctor stuff.
Right.
Is alumni connections, who you know, what you've done during residency, opportunities you're able to do during residency to build your CV to make you a competitive job applicant. So, whether or not that's actually going to come to fruition, that we're going to have a surplus, I feel like is pretty debated still. It looks like it's going that way, but I don't know if we're going to be in so bad as like radiation oncology or pathology, for example, where people are doing like 3 fellowships before they're able to be done. But You know, I still would not discourage someone from applying emergency medicine, though. I still think it's a great field. There's lots of opportunities, even outside of the emergency department, like administration, observation, critical care, different medical specialties, blends of EM, consulting. Like there's literally tons of opportunities, plus building EM into your own practice in some capacity as a clinical physician. So, you know, if you want to do it, do it. It's just something I think you should be aware about and you should be honest about with yourself. If it is really a concern for you, I would just, you know, talk with a mentor about it for a little while, like the pros, cons. But, you know, just in quick summary, I still think hotly debated among a lot of people whether or not that's actually going to come to fruition like a true surplus. Because there's also about to be a lot of expected retirements in EM as well to kind of balance it out. But we'll see.
Very well. So, wow, 55 minutes already, and we've answered a lot of questions. I want to say thank you guys so much for coming, for sharing your experiences, and for answering a lot of these questions. Why don't we finish up with some last minute advice from each one of you? Jillian, let's start with you.
Oh, sure. You know, one thing that I actually do want to talk about is like leadership opportunities. I know you don't have to be the president of your school's emergency medicine interest group to get great interviews. They do just want to see that you are passionate about something, you know, have some leadership position in something through medical school, whether it's like a religious group or another interest group or a club or a community service thing. They just want to see that you kind of found something in medical school and kind of stuck with it and how you grow throughout. So if you can just, you know, grab something that you have in your medical school, it doesn't have to be EM related. It can be literally anything, and just show that you had some leadership opportunities in there is a really great way for you to, you know, get involved and be able to put things on your CV and talk about in the future, because leadership in emergency medicine is really important.
Brendan?
So I guess I would just reiterate my point from a little bit earlier and say finding a mentor, for me at least, was a super important portion of my kind of path to emergency medicine. So I think Janelle is actually going to get all of our emails, I guess, out to you guys, right?
Yeah.
So if you vibe with one of us, shoot us an email. If you see someone that you're, you know, at your hospital that you're rotating at, and you think that they could be a really good mentor to you, definitely take them on and see if you can get their advice moving forward.
Eva?
Yeah, so I'll make sure to send out everyone's emails once this is done. I would say you are more than your scores. I feel like I have to say that because maybe it's just me saying it to myself, but it's so important for you to not sell yourself short, because your personality, your work ethic matters so much. And especially that's what I love about EM is like, they actually truly care more about that. Like they would rather the person who really cares and works hard, who maybe has a little bit lower of scores, than the person who has the really high scores, who doesn't care and like thinks they're better than everyone, right? So honestly, like EM is one of the best fields. I'm so glad you guys are considering it. And, you know, if you guys ever need anything, like they said, find a mentor, reach out to us, and we'll be sending our contact info as well.
Very nice. Dr. Owen?
Yeah, I'd say biggest thing, guys, take a deep breath. Don't sweat it. You're going to match. You're going to do it. It's going to be okay. I promise you. And I also just want to reiterate, there is no right way or wrong way to do this process. So if you have someone telling you like, you didn't do this thing, oh my gosh, or XYZ, like, please take a step back and realize that all of us here on this panel did a very different path to get to the same place. And that's totally okay. And just try to enjoy the process, try to let yourself relax a little bit. And then the biggest thing I'd say, re-rank list, is just make sure that you're also thinking about it. Like you can be anywhere on your best day. You can be at any emergency department and freaking kill it on your best day, right? But you want to make sure you're choosing a program where you're going to be comfortable on your worst day, because residency can be hard and you need to be somewhere that you genuinely will feel supported, whether that's like supported within the program or supported in that you're close to home or close to family, if that's important to you, or like close to in a city you enjoy, or whatever it is. Just like make sure you're thinking about it, because it's not like our whole lives we're doing like college to med school to residency. It's like always the next thing, right? But you want to take a step back and also think about like your life, right? And like how you're going to be happy overall, because that's really important as well.
Very nice. Dr. Liu, any closing remarks or last minute advice?
I would say the same thing, honestly. Definitely think about what's most important to you. whether it be family or being close to friends, or maybe you're the adventurer and you want to start in a completely new place. Or maybe it's just that you vibe so well with the residents at a certain place that you're like, this is definitely where I want to be because I can see myself here. Like these are all questions that you have to sit and ask yourself, not just as you're making your rank list, but even as you're applying. Like, do I want to be in a specific location? Do I want to be, close to family, far from family? Do I want to be by the beach? Do I not want to be by the beach? Like, these are all things that you kind of have to gauge beforehand. And if you can just reach out to one of the residents that are, at these locations, like, hey, I was really interested in this program. Tell me what your life is like at the program. And knowing what it's like for a typical resident there will kind of give you an idea of how much free time you're going to have versus, are you busy all the time and you're just constantly stressed out? Residency is hard no matter what. So you're going to have points where you're stressed out no matter what. But you will also want to be in a place where you can find your peace, and I think that's very important.
Very nice. Dr. Merritt.
I guess mine would just be, don't be afraid to ask questions. I like as being in your shoes, I remember always being hesitant to ask people questions because I thought I was going to be a bother or, waste their time. And I hope I'm not overstepping for the rest of the panelists, but I think just by being here, like, if you email me, text me, whatever, like, I will get back to you as soon as I can. I know the residents on here are busy with work, but I am more than happy to answer any questions you guys have. And I know there are a lot of people throughout the country, a lot of residents, a lot of faculty and attendings that feel the same way because we've been in that position. So just don't feel like you have to do it by yourself or figure out the answer because one, there may not be a right answer to a lot of these questions because it's a very dynamic process, but just please reach out if you have any concerns or questions. There will be someone there to address your questions.
Very nice. Dr. DeFilippo.
All right, guys. Like I said, you're doctors. Don't let the DO stigma get in your head.
Yeah.
You're physicians. This thing is rapidly evaporating. I feel like DO schools are just negative echo chambers for this stigma. There's DOs literally in every specialty, in national boards, in positions of leadership, internationally. Like, nothing can stop you from chasing your dreams. And if someone tells you otherwise, let me know. I'm going to call my cousins from Brooklyn and have them speak with them late at night as they're walking to their car alone. Okay. But yeah, you're for real doctors. Don't let anybody ever tell you differently. And seriously, you guys are all doing a great job. You're going to be amazing physicians. And I'm proud to work with all of you in the future as future emergency medicine physicians.
Very nice. Cheers to the future of emergency medicine. Eva, you want to take over?
Yeah, thank you guys again. Thank you to all the panelists for coming. As everyone said, you guys are not in this alone. We're all DOs. Look at how many of us were on this call. So you are truly not alone. And when you do feel like you are, just reach out to someone. And thank you guys again for being here.